Medieval Europe is known for its knights and castles, peasants and plagues, and above all, its kings and queens. But how did they go from conquering Rome to conquering England? And how did they manage to do it in only 1,000 years? Well, let's find out. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to speed run 1,000 years of medieval history, because when you put it like that, the Middle Ages don't sound so bad. In fact, if you were born into the right family, you might have ended up ruling over half of Europe. Just ask William the Conqueror. Let's get started with our 1,000-year time crunch, starting at 476 CE. The year that Romulus Augustulus was deposed by the Germanic general Odoacer, an event that marked the traditional end of the Western Roman Empire and the beginning of the Middle Ages. Now, we could argue whether or not this date is actually accurate, but really it doesn't matter, because between 476 and 800 CE, Europe was still recovering from the loss of roads, aqueducts, sanitation systems, concrete, and literacy. It was hard to imagine things getting much worse. In northern Italy, the expatriated Roman Senate elected the first king of Italy, the Germanic war leader Theodoric the Great. Soon, the rest of Europe would follow suit and declare their own local warlords as kings. For example, Clovis I, who united the Franks and became the first king of the Franks in 481. His grandson, Chilbert I, brought the Merovingian dynasty to its peak before dying in 558. And then there was Alaric II, who ruled Visigothic territory in southern Gaul from 507 until his defeat at the Battle of Vui in 507, where he was killed. These three guys, plus Theodoric the Great, make up the Big Four of early medieval monarchs. Oh, and they were all men. Spoiler alert, women didn't really get to be monarchs in the Middle Ages, even though Queen Brunhild of Austrasia tried her best. Meanwhile, while the continent was busy installing kings, a small group of scholars kept Roman culture alive through painstakingly copying manuscripts, a process which helped preserve the works of Caesar, Cicero, and Virgil for future generations. This small band of bookworms were part of what historians call the Carolingian Renaissance, the period of cultural rebirth during the reign of Charlemagne, king of the Franks from 768 to 814, thanks to the combined efforts of scribes and scholars. The Carolingian Renaissance saw a revival in art, literature, and education, all of which helped lay the foundation for the High Middle Ages. Speaking of Charlemagne, he also went ahead and conquered most of modern-day France, Germany, and a little bit of Italy. He was eventually crowned Holy Roman Emperor by Pope Leo III on Christmas Day in 800. But after Charlie's death in 814, the empire was divided amongst his sons and grandsons. Then in 843, the Treaty of Verdun officially broke up the Carolingian Empire into three separate pieces: East, West, and Middle, laying the groundwork for modern Germany. Unfortunately, this division would soon lead to the destruction of the Carolingian Renaissance. Since the rulers of Western Europe were more interested in fighting with each other than preserving Roman culture, but don't worry, they would soon give each other a run for their money with the Viking invasions. As the 800s drew to a close, a new threat emerged from the north. No longer willing to simply raid the coasts, Vikings began establishing settlements across Europe, from Dublin to Constantinople. Luckily for them, the local nobility were more concerned with consolidating power than defending their land. So the Vikings were free to pillage monasteries and set up shop wherever they wanted. Fortunately for Europe, one Frankish nobleman named Charles the Bald took defense of his people into his own hands. He negotiated with Viking leaders, granting them land in exchange for their allegiance. One such Viking was Ragnar Lothbrok, the legendary hero of Norse legend, who is said to have established the Danala, a Viking state within the Kingdom of Northumbria in the 860s. Another was Rollo, who was granted the territory of Normandy in 911, creating a duchy that would come to define medieval culture. And of course, there was the great Canute the Great, who united the Danes, English, and Northmen under one rule and established a North Sea empire that stretched from the Byzantine Empire to the British Isles. Yet, despite their successes, the Vikings couldn't stop the steady march of Islam. By the year 1000, Muslims had taken control of North Africa, the Iberian Peninsula, and even parts of France. Only the Frankish king managed to stop their advance at the Battle of Tours in 732, although it wasn't nearly enough to stop the Muslim advance. In fact, they wouldn't be pushed back until the 12th century, when Christian kingdoms began the Reconquista. a centuries-long effort to reclaim Iberia from Muslim rule. Also, a quick PSA here. Did you know that you can learn real-world history by playing a video game? The creators of Crusader Kings 3 understand medieval history so well that they created a game based around the lives of medieval nobles. You can play as historical figures like Saladin, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and Richard the Lionheart, and make decisions that affect the outcome of their stories. Or you can create your own character and build a dynasty from nothing. Best of all, if you want to learn about medieval history but aren't sure where to start, you can always play the Royal Court DLC and live vicariously through the life of a medieval courtier. You'll find the link in the description below. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Meanwhile, while the Frankish kings were busy being murdered by their rivals, the real power in Western Europe was slipping away. Because while the old Roman system of government was crumbling, a new one was quietly rising to replace it. Local nobles were stepping in to fill the void of authority left by distant kings and setting up powerful local governments. In the 900s, they came to be known as the nobles of the Holy Roman Empire, and their influence extended from Ireland to Spain and everywhere in between for most of the 1,000 years of the Middle Ages. These nobles governed independently with little interference from outside powers. That was, of course, until the coronation of Henry IV, Holy Roman Emperor in 1056, a devout Catholic. Henry believed he had been chosen by God to lead the church and reform the papacy. His efforts paid off when he successfully crowned Pope Gregory VII in 1073. But Henry's ambitions would soon get him into hot water when he challenged the Pope's authority at the investiture controversy. The debate over who had the power to appoint bishops and lay investiture lasted for decades, but ultimately resulted in Henry's deposition in 1125. The resulting Concordat of Worms gave the Pope the sole authority to invest bishops, setting the stage for the papacy's growth in power during the High Middle Ages. But the investiture controversy was only one event in a century full of them, including the First Crusade, called by Pope Urban II in 1095, which ended with the establishment of 4 Crusader states in the Levant. And then there was the Children's Crusade of 1212, which resulted in thousands of European children either dying of starvation or being sold into slavery. Also, the 1100s saw the beginnings of the first universities in Europe, including the University of Bologna, the University of Paris, and the University of Oxford. Unfortunately, higher education was only available to the wealthy elite, meaning that for most medieval Europeans, literacy remained a rare skill. Then came the calamity of 1173, when Henry II of England clashed with Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, leading to the latter's murder in 1170. Wanting to repair the damage done to the church's reputation, Henry set out on a campaign to conquer Ireland, an effort which ended in disaster when he was captured by rebel Irish forces. Henry was forced to return to England in 1174 without Ireland. Having learned a valuable lesson about the limits of royal power, his son Richard the Lionheart would have none of it though, and set out on a personal crusade to conquer the Holy Land, an effort which ended in disaster when he was captured by the Austrian Duke Leopold VI and ransomed by his sister, Queen Isabella of England. While Richard was gone, however, his brother, King John, lost Normandy to the French in 1204. As a result, England became a kingdom without a king. After years of civil war, the English nobility forced John to sign the Magna Carta in 1215, a document which guaranteed the liberties of the English people and limited the power of the monarchy. John's successors would go on to lose most of England's continental possessions, leaving the country isolated from the rest of Europe. This isolation allowed England to develop its own unique culture, literature, and art, a development which culminated in the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales. But as the 1200s drew to a close, a new plague arrived from Asia, known today as the Black Death. The bubonic plague killed millions of people across Europe and helped usher in the late Middle Ages. Over the next 2 centuries, Europe would be devastated by 3 more plagues, which contributed to the decline of the feudal system, the rise of cities, and the growing power of kings. But you don't need to wait another 700 years to learn about them. Subscribe for more content and leave a like and comment down below to help support the channel. And as always, thank you for watching.